John, we're going to put you up first.
Okay. As you should see from your packet, Micropulse is looking at another expansion here in Whitley County, which is a good thing. They continue to grow. Looking at a proposed investment of $5.5 million in new equipment and 25 new jobs at the location out Lower State Road 14. There is a minor error in the memo that I prepared for you in that I had an assumed higher rate of 50% of the employees, of the new employees being from residing in Whitley County. That number is actually 45. The other numbers reflect that. So in terms of the value of the benefits to the county, it actually assumes that 45% of their employees would be hired from Whitley County. It's just when I went back and made those changes, I forgot to change that from 50 to 45. As you can see, the project breaks even almost immediately. Well, immediately because of the CDET and gadget tax, even with typical 10-year abatement, the gadget and CDET tax still puts this in positive ground the first year. And also, as I did with the last abatement, I know to address some concerns that we had earlier this summer, I put language in the resolution regarding the council's ability to review this abatement at a future date if the company were to come in and apply for assessment at some point during the term of the So, again, good paying jobs, over $19 an hour plus benefits. I think Micropulse has not only had a strong commitment to the county, but has also become one of our leading employers, certainly one of the biggest employers in the county, and paying good wages and focusing on training a lot of our young folks that are coming out of school and providing good jobs for them to keep them here in the area. So I guess I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Brian, how long have you been out there at that location?
Micropulse has been there 2088 when we started that location. I've been there since '96.
John, are they under any current abatements right now?
Yeah, so there's an abatement from 2013, 2014 for a previous project when they went from like 250 to 300 employees.
So just one right now?
Yeah.
And
I believe
so,
Yeah.
So that one-
actually, that one, December 31st.
so it was just a 3-year abatement?
No.
No.
And the investment?
It means that all of the equipment and everything and building for that abatement was done by the end of last year. Kind of got two of them going along at the same time, but this is new investment over and above that previous investment.
And everything with that abatement has been as it should be as far as through, they've been compliant with everything?
Yeah, everything else is our best in that regard.
Great.
Has this got a number, Jana?
It is 2017-14.
I would move we approve for 10 years, 2017-14.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any additional discussion? Brian, I always ask one question on it. Are you veteran friendly in your hiring process of new employees?
I can't say that we have preferential treatment for veterans in the hiring process, but we do have several veterans that are proactively people for us. They're not with regular schedules, so we're able to serve in that regards.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor of the resolution signify by your right hand. Opposed, the same. 7-0 pass. This is the one you signed.
Yes, I did. Are you going to be here? Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
You signed it in the wrong spot. I don't know if you want me to sign it there. You signed it in the wrong spot.
Well, I signed it down there.
Sheriff Gatton, you are up next on the agenda, and if you have any guests.
Before we start with the guests, can we do the two transfers? A request for transfer? The first one I have on top is the Department of the Sheriff. Request for warrant. I'm requesting to take $15,000 out of the gas fund and put into the garage fund to finish out the year, hopefully.
What is a garage fund?
Garage fund for the sheriff's side can include like car maintenance, oil changes.
Gotcha.
They have all the transfer resolutions on one sheet, so you want to go ahead and go through the jail?
Yeah. Requesting to take $50,000 out of medical and put into equipment maintenance at the jail. Take out $15,000 and put in for work release meals, and take out $15,000 to put in utilities.
Utilities, I mean, has there been an increase in heating costs or cooling costs or?
Water usage.
Water.
And an increase of inmates, I think, I didn't look last month, but we averaged between 11 and 15.
When you budgeted, did we raise that for next year?
I think we did on that one.
The equipment maintenance mark, the $50,000, is that going to be earmarked for a project, or is it being transferred to make up for a deficit for some of the projects you've done?
That's what it's being transferred to pay some things, plus some of the stuff that's come up that like Mark has brought over.
How much of a shortfall do you still think that you're going to have in that fund, even with transferring that $50,000? Or is that going to cover the rest of the year, for what you know now?
I can say that's going to cover, that's the hope that we're going to cover and get to the end.
So are you transferring a little bit more than what's needed right now?
Probably, yeah, a little, not. I mean, but you guys know the jail, I don't know when we could be back next, talking about something's broken.
As far as the medical that we're transferring from, is that, we just had a good year?
Yeah, let's try not to go into debt before we get a big cost at a hospital with an inmate. Yeah, it's been a good year.
Okay.
We've got a request for a transfer resolution. Do we have a motion?
I so move.
I'll second that. Yeah, motion and second. We have any additional discussion? Those in favor of the transfer signify with your right hand. Opposed, the same.
Mr. Ritter and John, you guys want to come up? Okay, so last month I brought that proposal, or not that packet, for 911 duties. We reached out and tried to talk to, bring Ed from the state 911 director right now currently. His schedule was busy, could not commit. Today to ask questions, I brought Barry Ritter. He's been in public service for over 30 years in different divisions, from law enforcement to running PSAP to being the state 911 director. So this is Mr. Ritter.
Good morning.
Mr. Banks, you had some questions about 911. I'm hoping he can answer anything you have since he ran that department for, I believe, 7 years.
I didn't realize that you'd be here today.
Oh.
I would have brought a list of questions, but I had no idea. I had hoped to spend time with someone in the department and just understand the daily duties. I didn't want to talk money or anything. I just wanted to talk about the essential job function. And I'm trying to make sense of the amount of increase in salary that's being requested. So that's what I had hoped for.
I can provide you with a high-level overview, operations in the PSAP if you want to focus on the telecommunicator, or if you are specifically focusing on the director or coordinator's position that's under consideration here. Understanding that the PSAP oftentimes in the fielding in the industry, and I've spent over 30 years in public safety in government, county government, state government, and oftentimes we look at what we call dispatchers for years as operating in the clerical realm. However, over time, with the inception of 911 and the additional duties of technology, professionalism in that area has been required to increase. And they are the first step in that thought of public safety. They are a first responder, even though we don't think of them in that realm. We advertise on your police cars, your fire trucks, in the media, on your road signs, starting in preschool, that if an individual needs help, that they're to call 911. And the volume of 911 calls and the wide range of calls in the PSAP vary from what we consider here to be extremely minor, information gathering purposes through major crimes, or EMS or fire response. We've added technologies over the years. When I started in my career, we used paper and pencil. And we went to a typewriter, we thought we were using technology. And now everything that is required then is computer-based, and the software applications that they use. The delivery of the technology to, I'll use the term PSAP or 911 center, has evolved and changed. The information that's provided to the telecommunicator into the center for caller location, while not 100% accurate, is provided. Obviously, additional information beyond that. In Indiana, we just started delivering text capabilities into the 911 centers, and we believe that in this next generation 911 phase, that we will soon see video, telematics, and other means of communications being delivered into the PSAP for triage to be sent to first responders, to be sent to the emergency room in a real-time scenario, which is going to create an additional need for training and resources in the center. That's at the telecommunicator level and what they're responsible for on a daily basis, not only communication from the citizens, but those first responders who are working. At the coordinator or director's level, obviously every agency has an agency head, someone that's responsible. In most PSAPs, and I've visited with the sheriff and the folks here to better understand what responsibilities that position holds. Being the CAD administrator, computer-aided dispatch, responsible for operation, maintenance contracts used by the MDTs or the officers in the field. The 911 system itself, the Master Street Address Guide. If your planning commission issues a new address, that information has to be prepared and uploaded into the system by your 911 provider. So in the event they get a 911 call, the correct location information is delivered. The center serves as the single point of contact for IDAC's NCIC. Either the director with the oversight of an IDAC coordinator entering stolen property, missing persons, entering protective orders from reports that are issued, monthly validations on the information that's in ensuring that it's still accurate and correct for the first responders, law enforcement that are working either a crime scene or doing an investigation. Personnel, HR-related, payroll, vacation time. Most directors in Indiana also work at console. They operate as a telecommunicator, and they're responsible for shift coverage. On call, someone calls in sick, someone takes a vacation day. If you don't utilize part-time personnel, that person's responsible for sitting in that seat to make sure that someone there is. The administrative side of work that's put upon that position, be it for county business that may take place through that center after hours. A lot of centers are for county highway, or for the county building, or for the sheriff's department after normal business hours. So there's not a one-size-fits-all. It's what works for your local jurisdiction and what requirements are put on that person or that position to ensure that you have a professional operation, no different than the sheriff's department, no different than the city police department, or one of your fire departments, or an EMS company that may respond. That when a taxpayer calls, or someone traveling through your county calls, that they're receiving the best service that they can receive. And while spending all my time in public safety, I never operated from a liability standpoint. I was always aware that that existed, and that we made reasonable decisions and informed decisions that we operate provides the service that's expected by the taxpayer. That's kind of a high-level overview of some of the responsibilities in that center. But either today or by follow-up, the sheriff has my contact information.
Sheriff, who's doing the maintenance operations out there now? The things that maintain the system,
On the radio system,
just the EMS system. If you have a change of address or whatever has to be handled internally,
that's being sent to me right now.
you doing it?
I can't do,
Okay.
I'll be honest. I haven't had. Dan's emailed me like 5 times in the last month for address changes or new numbers, street names. Don't have to handle it. Can you talk to him about how many 911 calls, even if they're...
Again, the county PSAP, or the county 911 center, is considered the primary PSAP. And so over 80% of all 911 calls in Indiana now originate from a wireless device. And under the structure of the statute and the way the 911 board has built a network in Indiana, all of those calls from wireless devices are delivered to the county PSAP. Then, the example here, if it's a caller inside the city, they'll transfer that 911 call to the city PSAP. There have been questions asked across the state when I was the director about dividing cell sectors, and if a cell tower resides in the corporate limits, or there is a sector that is predominantly facing a municipality, that those calls be routed to the municipal PSAP and not the county. That can be done in metropolitan areas, but in smaller, rural, municipal areas, you run into difficulties that cell sector covers more than just the corporate boundaries of, say, Columbia City. And dividing that sector costs money that the state board is not going to invest, and it degrades public safety if, in the event that those calls are bouncing back and forth and being transferred from one center to the other. Part of the purpose behind consolidation that the legislature mandated years ago was improve public safety. Having one PSAP in a county, while the statute currently allows for 2, a lot of counties only have the 1. As technology improves and we begin to deliver wireless calls based off of GPS locations on the phones, it may be more economically feasible to split those calls and deliver to appropriate PSAPs, but in the meantime, they'll continue being delivered to the county.
When a housing complex similar to, comes in, similar to what Eagle Glen is, how many entries would that be new into a system? Ballpark figure.
It's based on roads, and you give a high range and a low range on that road of the address. Eagle Glen, we've had to change several times because they'll put a new building up. The building up on the other end of the street, we gotta change the high range. Down here at Weston Avenue, they just got a new street, they're starting their second phase of that addition. Make arrangements for that street, and then any addresses that are put on.
So if there's a 20-unit apartment complex goes in, that's 20 entries for each renter?
It's what? What was your question?
Talking about the Eagle Glen complex on it, there's multiple apartment buildings on it. So if you have a 20-unit apartment complex on it,
Oh, I see.
that'd be 20 entries in, and
Well, with 90% of them being cell phone calls anymore, it's probably a fair estimate that somewhere around 90% of those people are operating off cell calls too, so you might not get 20 out of a 20-unit building.
You would still have to input each address.
Do you?
The address, yeah. We don't have as many line changes as we used to have because of the cell phones as well, but you guys still have the increase in locations.
Does the statute require us to have a director?
The statute does not.
Does not.
Correct.
additional comments or questions for either of the people?
I guess, only question, I guess, that comes to my mind is, how many hours a day do we think it takes to log in, like new addresses or that?
That's not gonna, that part's not gonna happen every day.
Correct, yeah,
So I don't know how long.
yeah.
I can't.
You can't average it out,
But
or,
there are duties that need to be done every day down there for the 911.
sure.
That was my question, who would do that now?
Well, I get the claims and then I have to pass them on and. Pretty much, I'll be honest, after doing them, because I don't get that portion of it right now.
Sure, looks like you've been pulling your hair out trying to get it done.
How many comments you made about my hair?
I'm teasing you, Mark.
I know, but it's always about my hair. So we do need somebody assigned to do the duties, so we can have the reports filled out and continue to get our money.
In the request, there are two different positions, you gonna handle them together?
My request is only for
Well,
Janelle.
no.
Only for one.
I didn't come back with the other one yet because we haven't finished the research on it.
Okay,
And if you want to throw the other one in, that'd be Jim Dandy, but. So again, I came back to ask for the $10,017. I know everybody thinks it's a big, it is a lot of money, let me put it that way. But again, I go back to the way it was formed. I know you guys just been in the personnel committee, but that's what we're under. Also, we were paying $58,262, one person due to those two. I've showed you the packets and the benefits of what I think we're getting for doing it with just Janelle taking on all those duties. She's capable again, like I said. We've been without it. I can no longer do it, I'm going to be honest. I don't want the stress anymore. I don't understand it, Bill. I'm being honest with you. If I had more time to dedicate it, I'm sure I could learn it over time, but gentlemen, I don't have time to do that. So again, I think it's a good investment, and I showed you the packet last month. Another way we could do it and pay like it was paid before is to move, which I don't stress on me, Jana, I don't know how much work it would be. Put Janelle back into the 911 and take her out of Lowit and take one of the dispatchers and put them back, then it's paid with the funds that we get, user fees, just like it was before. Or we can, she's in Lowit right now. Her duties.
So with that option, you would be creating, recreating the position that we
No.
got
We
rid
would
of?
not be recreating the whole position, we would just be recreating the 911 duties to Janelle for the $17. But if that doesn't pass, then I'm gonna probably honestly have to ask the commissioners to come back and reinstate the whole. Or open it up for whatever they do with it.
Oh, when that originally came, I had couple of long talks with you, and I believed then that this was the way to go, and I still do. So I'll make a motion that we grant your request, the 10,000.
Just remember that the duties are increased, and in 2006, as I go back, as a part-time position, it was paid $14,000.
We have a motion, do we have a second? I will second the motion and open it for discussion. Have any additional discussion? Any questions for Mark or Janelle? Those in favor of the motion signify with your right hand. Opposed, the same. Brandon, I believe you're up next.
Pretty much all year, I've been talking to you all about revenue increases, be it from the community crossings grant program or the fuel tax increase that took effect July 1st. What you've got here shows all the revenue by month for the MVH or highway fund. Going back to January 16 through current. And in the bottom portion, I'm showing you the difference by month. So for January of 17, we actually received $3,909 less than we did in January of 16. The real important numbers are the last four numbers in that column. August 7th, we received $141,000 less than the year before, and that's inflation. One of the clauses in that said that the first $70 million goes to the state highway fund, and then there was a little bit of carryover on that $70 million that went into October and November. $670,000 that we'll be receiving from. And for this year, for the work that we've already done, we'll be getting up. So we don't have short of something. Very defined money will be coming. So I wanted to share that with you. I do have a request for additional appropriation for $20,000 for a bituminous item. We are, of course, throwing chips this year, but we've got 2 paving projects that Whitley will be working on. We're working on today on prep work. The cul-de-sacs out at State Laker. 205 and 300. Just last month I asked for a straw load on that so that I could give them a go-ahead schedule. It's supposed to take place this week.
We have a request for some additional appropriation resolution and ordinance, highway bituminous supplies.
So this would be to stockpile for your projects for next year?
No, this is to pay for this paving project.
You're talking about them doing that this week. It's supposed to get pretty cold this week. Is that gonna, how well is that gonna hold up with trying to pay that, what's that, huh?
It'd be fine. I paved mainline surface on US 6 when it was.
I make a motion to approve the request as for the $20,000.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor of the appropriation, signify by your right hand. Opposed, the same.
I've also been talking to you since I presented my budget about asking for an additional truck driver. And so what I've prepared is 4 different scenarios. This could be our daily schedule. Just so you can see how we distribute our forces. Scenario 1 is when we're chip sealing. Chip spreader, the distributor, the roller, the broom, the lead truck, and haul truck. Those are all dedicated to the chip sealing operation. And in past years, we used more than 7 haul trucks, but we've got 2 tandems last year, and we got another one coming at the beginning of 18. So that's the middle of the summer. We've got to have guys out mowing. And depending on how things go, we've got either guys patching ahead of the chip seal operation or just in general. Which that scenario comes up to 18, which, so you know that we've got 10 drivers, 6 operators, and an assistant foreman that operates, does labor, and then helps with the foreman position. So that would be 17. In that scenario, as it's presented, we need 18. Scenario 2 is a kind of the mode that we're in now. We're berming, we're cutting ditches, replacing culverts, mowing, patching, cutting brush, replacing signs, and putting out traffic. Plowing, we have 12 territories. We've got all the subdivisions in the counties. Altogether, we've got 17 territories, and we've got 17 guys. sick themselves, we're running short as quickly. Scenario 4, I threw in, questions come up on, what do we go out, we look for problems, we look for suckles on culverts, we pick up trash and tree debris, control our territories, look for problems. We got a guy on signs, could have a guy in the yard, somebody has problems with culverts in general, sometimes we rain, sometimes we go stockpiling material. And there's obviously a list of miscellaneous operations, things that we don't do, things that we do. Take someone to do that. The current staff is a total of 22 employees, and combined, there's 245 years of experience. So anytime someone takes a PTO day, either for vacation or for personal or sick time, we want to categorize that,
Did we okay that in the budget? Did we okay that in the budget? Sure, I'm not sure either. We okay with it. Just one.
So this is really out of highway money. I mean, I'm showing you our revenue is will be more than adequate to cover that. So, if you got questions now, or if you got questions, you want to think about it.
I think we added one to the budget. Or are you asking for one above that?
We added one back in June or July, which was before the budget. I asked for an additional one with the budget.
I think we put it in there, did we? No.
I've always been intrigued by, we have operators and we have truck drivers. I've never quite understood how a person can be qualified to drive a truck and not be qualified to be an operator.
Well, that was set up that way before my time. The way that we do it is the guys that are operators are the ones that are running the bucket truck, running the backhoe, running the skid loaders, running and the chip spreader.
I think years ago, it was just a way of getting some more money for some people or something.
I mean, trust me, not just anyone, and there's probably not very many people in this room that box full of switches. Every 6 inches bar, 20 foot wide, has a switch that you can turn on and off. Just going down the road, sure, that's easy, but when you've got radii at intersections, those guys are pretty impressive for us to do that.
Well, an operator could be someone that has been trained and runs a backhoe, or one of your big front loaders, right?
Sure.
So I know that that's a job that requires training and additional knowledge to do. So to call that an operator over just somebody who has or is labeled as a truck driver, I would see that they're
Just working construction, I worked construction for a small outfit. It was no big deal to jump out of the truck and use the excavator or the payloader or whatever.
But that was an additional skill that you learned to do, though, right? I mean, it wasn't just driving a truck, it was an additional skill that you learned how to do. And you were more valuable because you could do that.
I just I always thought driving a truck was probably a lot more responsibility than a lot of the other stuff.
Well, and, I went through this with the commissioners yesterday, and
Only a lot of responsibility
I'll
there.
pick on
Yeah.
George again, ask George what it's like to plow snow in a blowing,
Oh, yeah.
blowing snow and whiteout conditions. Yeah, it's
Plowing snow is probably one of the most difficult things you can do.
sure is, and those guys are driving.
There's days you can't tell where anything's at. Yeah. I just threw it out there, Brad.
I get what you mean is that we're paying somebody for a different skill, but the skills required now ought to all be the same, which I kind of agree with.
Do you have any additional for Brandon? Thank you.
Okay. I'll be back next month. Probably, I don't know, we'll either have to do some transferring or possibly additional, to cover end of the year things, but one line item with this last.
Thank you. We requested that we have Michael Frizzell of MDH HR Consulting come do a presentation, and he is here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. All right, George says I only had 10 minutes, so we'll go quick.
Well, you.
All right. In January of this year, my name is Michael Frizzell. I run a firm called MDF HR Consulting. I'll give you a little bit of my background in here. In January of this year, I was asked to provide a proposal for developing a compensation plan for the county, and this PowerPoint presentation outlines how we would go about doing that. Feel free to stop me at any time and ask questions. So, my background here, I've been doing management consulting experience in nonprofit organizations, public, private, nonprofit since 1989. I have a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology and a bachelor's degree in psychology and human resources management. Been previously certified as a senior professional in human resources. Been working primarily with not-for-profit utilities since 2001. I have worked with Northeastern here in Columbia City since 2001. I was just thinking about the CEO there's youngest son was in kindergarten when I first started working with him, and he is a senior in college now. I've been here a lot. Currently working with clients in 37 different states. Here's my service territory. So, compensation plans. Any good compensation plan is going to contribute to the vital business objectives of any organizations. Now, the county is not a business, but the county has business, and we got to do that business in a business-like manner. So we want to be able to attract qualified employees, we want to be able to retain qualified employees, and we want to motivate qualified employees. On the business side, we want to properly maintain a plan that pays employees competitively, so we can do those three things up top, and then we also want to control salary costs. We don't want to overpay for anything else that we spend money on in the county. We do not want to overpay for human resources. A well-maintained plan is going to control those salary costs so you stay within budget and maintain your objectives there. Any good compensation plan is going to be built on these two main objectives, internal equity and external equity. Internal equity meaning that the compensation for each position is appropriate relative to other positions in the organization. So, is that operator and that truck driver in the right place compared to your accountants, to your frontline county service people? Is everybody in the right place based on where they belong in the organization? To measure that, we use standardized factors that measure the relative worth of each position, and those factors look at knowledge. How much education and experience does it take to do that job? Program and personnel responsibility. How much are they responsible for the work of other people? How much are they responsible for running a program for the county? Decision weight. What's the effect of the decisions being made by the person in that position, and what's its effect in their part of the organization and the county as a whole? How complex are the decisions they're dealing with? Are they routine, everything is black and white, or are they very highly complex, multiple variables? And then the last thing we look at is communications. Who are they dealing with, and what is the level of those communications? From those 5 factors, every job gets a point value. And that's how we decide which grade those jobs go into. Next thing we look at is external equity. We collect market data for as many evaluated positions as possible. Possible sources of these positions are a commercial survey I subscribe to, which you would have access if you engage me, the Economic Research Institute National Salary Survey, that has thousands of localities across the country, hundreds and hundreds of different jobs, titles in there, broken down by years of service, revenue size, and different things like that. So we've got data on those type positions. Municipal salary schedules. Other municipalities have their salary schedules out there out there online. It's open records out there. We can see what other municipals are paying, so we can be competitive in the municipal market. And then there also may be trade association surveys for different jobs in the county that we can look to. So we will look to as many sources as possible for external data. So, to develop the process, first we look at the philosophy. Where does the county want it to be? We have a job evaluation committee to go through those standardized factors. We have a management review process, which is either senior management and designees of the commission, or just senior management, however you end up wanting to do it. Then I do job pricing, go through the actual job evaluations and pull the market data to decide what the job pricing should be. There's another layer of management review after that. Develop an implementation plan after everything is settled. Come back to the full commission if you've not all been involved at that point to show you the entire results of the plan and what we wanted to go forward in implementation. After that, if it's approved by the commission, we go back to the employees, and then you just go into a maintenance mode. So for your philosophy, where do we want to be in the market? Where is our labor market? Are we only hiring people in Whitley County? Are we looking to the state? Are there some positions that are a national market? What are our issues? Do we have jobs that we have hard time getting people in here because we have starting pay issues? Do we have jobs where we have a hard time retaining people because our pay is an issue? Where do we want to be competitively? Do we want to lead the market? Probably not. We're dealing with taxpayer funds. We don't want to be the highest paying employer in the area, but we probably want to be very competitive in the market so we can get the best and the brightest to serve our taxpayers in the county. Then the job evaluation committee meets. We want representatives from all the different parts of the organization. We want management and non-management. We're going to review job information. We're going to go through every job that is supposed to be put into the plan. We're going to apply those factors to every one of those jobs, cross-compare and adjust until there's a consensus reached. So, everybody, we got the job evaluation committee that goes through all of those 5 factors, and we figure out where each one of those jobs should be relative to each other. Then there's a management review part of that. We bring those results of that job evaluation committee back to senior management and commissioner designees or commissioners, however you want to do it. Any adjustments can be made at that point at management discretion. You know, the committee says the job is here, but we really think it's there. Let's put it there, see what it looks at. Then I go to job pricing. I pull as many benchmark jobs as I can, representative of all job families. We want availability of appropriate market data. We want the match to Whitley County positions. And we wanted to gather data from both public and private sector jobs. So we will know what all jobs are worth in points. We'll know that establishes our internal equity. We will know what most positions are worth in the market. That establishes our external equity. By mathematically combining the two, we know what a point is worth in our market, and we can decide what those jobs should be priced. Now, this brings back an interesting point. There are always some jobs that the points don't line up with market and vice versa. The point factor is a starting point. If we have jobs that we have very good market data and the points do not line up with market, we will go with what the market says, not what the points say. Okay. After we've done that, I'll prepare spreadsheets applying the job pricing to the employee population. We'll show about the evaluation and market alignment, how closely do our point values align up with market, individual placements in the range, where are our employees and where should they be, and we can make adjustments again to the range before the schedule is finalized. After it's finalized, we develop an implementation plan. Are there any things that require immediate action? Do we have employees significantly below market that we should probably do something about, probably over a period of years? Do we have any unintentional pay discrimination? Those are the types of things we need to fix when we implement a plan like this. I will develop a plan jointly with management to transition those employees into the system and address any issues that come up. If you need a policy adjustment, I will help the county draft that policy for your attorney for this board to decide what to do from there. I'm not sure how you grant salary increases at this point, or if you even allowed to by statute, but one thing I recommend using is an increase matrix that looks at two things: where the employee is in their salary range and where the employee is doing on their performance appraisal, and then it applies a salary increase based on that. In this particular matrix here, we've got an employee that's 5% below our selected market target. If they're getting a meets expectations, they would get a 2.6% increase or whatever is budgeted. As employees are lower in the range, they get a higher increase on smaller dollars that brings them to an appropriate market target. If they're higher performers, they get a different percentage. If we decide to go to a matrix type thing, this is built based on whatever budget the county allows and what are the objectives for that particular year. If we have a lot of employees that are low in the range that we should take care of, we will front load this matrix to bring those people up. If people are more evenly distributed, we'll just more evenly distribute that and reward our high performers and keep our good performers whole that are meets expectations employees. All right, after we brought all that together, if the full commission has not been involved in the entire process, we'll bring it before the commission and present how the plan was developed, any issues that came up in there, the implementation considerations, do we have any immediate fixes we need to think about, what are the budget requirements we're going to need going forward, and I can either deliver that in person to you guys by webinar, or it'll be handed off to Whitley County staff to bring it back to you. After that, usually what we do is employee education, so there's some sort of presentation to employees. They can either be delivered by me, by webinar, by the Whitley County staff. And then from then on, you go into maintenance mode. You're going to have all the tools available to you to update the plan. It can be either done by you or they can be done remotely by me with no travel costs. You generally should update the plan annually, at least a minimum of a 2-year cycle, and think about a complete rebuild of the plan every 5 to 7 years to keep it up to date. The maintenance process, very straightforward. New jobs are evaluated, market data is researched, range is recalculated, results applied to the employees, and you have a planned maintenance. And there's my contact information. Everybody should have my card. Did I get it done?
Great.
Any questions?
One of the things that you kind of pointed out was
Yeah.
performance.
Right.
And how, I think you covered it, but how do you keep from having somebody way out, away from everybody else because they're friends with the supervisor?
Yeah, well, this first part of this phase, we just pricing jobs. That's pricing the person, and you need a good performance appraisal system and process. I don't know if you have a performance appraisal system because I wasn't asked to look at that, but you need a good performance appraisal system and process. You need consistent training with your supervisors, and you need oversight by senior management to make sure that your supervisors are actually doing what you train them to do, and that puts the brakes on that.
Yeah.
So.
Any other questions for him?
John, I have one question. You talked about the job evaluation committee. How large are you looking at? and how
We
is that
usually try to
formed?
keep it about a dozen people or less, otherwise it gets very unwieldy. To minimize disruption, we can do it by department, and then bring a smaller committee together that represents all those departments to bring them all together. But generally, no more than 10 or 12 people, otherwise it just becomes a shout fest.
That's still, any kind of raise or anything like that still has to come in front of the...
Still comes from you, I just bring recommendations. At the end of the day, you'll have a legally defensible, easily maintainable salary plan going forward.
Any other questions for Mr. Phillip?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Before you take off, I do have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any other counties that you're currently doing this for?
No. I'm working primarily in the not-for-profit utility market. I have worked for government before. I spent 6 years in the Commonwealth of Virginia as a compensation analyst and a human resources manager, and I've also done federal government consulting and in different states, so I'm very familiar with governments. Yeah.
Georgia,
And I think commissioners would like to know, what direction you're looking at, giving us direction on this. We talked about bringing Mr. Frizzell in. I don't know if you want to think about this and determine what we're going to do for the next meeting. But we're kind of looking for direction at this point.
I think we should wait till next meeting and have a chance to think about all this.
Okay, good. And we can get you any information that you need in the meantime.
Sure. Do we have any idea of the cost?
Yeah, the initial cost was $25,000. And we did get that approved at one time. And after that cost, and that cost is in setting everything up and doing the studies. And then initially, after that first cost, it'll be right around between $2,500 and $3,000 a year for the maintenance of, and that would be if we have a job coming up that we need to have refactored, then
Sure,
he would do
sure.
that. That's part of that 25.
And that would all be in the commissioner's budget already,
Yeah.
money to pay for that.
Yeah.
would anybody like to have a printout of the presentation?
That's pretty clear.
George, I believe you're up next with the human resource position. Coordinator.
Just wanted to make everyone aware that what we're going to do, we've decided in working with the auditor's office to make sure that we've been very careful about determining what we need as far as a director and HR person. So Janet and the commissioners have worked together. We've determined that the position that we had back in 2011 is truly the coordinator / human resources and not director is what we're going to be hiring for. The pay would be, again, back to the 44.5 start, 329 would be the top pay for that position. So you're looking at next year, the payroll ordinance would not change at all. We wouldn't have a change at all for that because the pay would stay the same for that position.
Would they be working mainly with the auditor rather than with the commissioners?
It's probably going to be 50-50, to be honest about it, because she's going to be working with, or whoever it is going to be working with health issues, safety issues. One thing you'll see is we've got some issues with PERF and with unemployment insurance, FDIC, or FICA, I'm sorry. And so what we need to do is we need to have somebody that's really working with the auditor's office and watching numbers and making sure that that we have, if there are issues with safety or anything like that, that we're on top of that. We do training.
Along with that question, then, would they be working out of this office, or would they be up in the auditor's office?
Out of this office right now. We've even looked at maybe putting Veteran Service Office down here, but that's just something we just looked at right now because it gets to be an issue with some of the people, the older people trying to get upstairs for the VSO. But right now, it would be out of this office and working with auditors closely.
That's pretty much the way it was before, though, too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you wish to have a general consensus of the feeling of it, or to go forward?
Yeah, if we could.
Well, I guess I'm confused a little bit on the fact that it's a position that we as a body have already approved and put into the budget for next year, so that would be just a position for you to fill, wouldn't it?
Right, right.
Okay.
But I guess we're just looking, we just want to present it to the council and make sure that you're okay with the
Sure.
situation and let you know what we've done to bring this forward, because we have worked well with, I think, Jana will tell you that we've worked well with the auditor's office, and they've been dumped on right now, and they've taken care of everything, and it's just an issue that something has to be done here, because the auditor's office is not going to be able to handle it forever.
Sure.
And things are going by the wayside that really shouldn't go by the wayside right now.
What are those things? What's being missed?
Well, it's just issues like with FICA, the unemployment insurance, we've got people that, we're not, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll, if somebody's filing unemployment against us, we'll fight it. We always make sure that we're aware of what's going on. Things like that aren't being taken care of. Health insurance, yeah. Okay. Yeah, the health insurance, staying on top of health insurance, just probably more issues like that right now.
Is health insurance contracted out with Star?
Yeah. They're a third party.
Do they provide customer service to the employees? Do they?
Leslie works closely with us.
I appreciate your talking about this stuff with us, and always helps keep us informed a little closer.
Well, and I think, with the issues that we've had through the years, we just make sure that we work together.
Yeah,
We've got to
thank you.
step back and all
Thank
work
you,
together.
yeah.
And I think it's best.
Before we need a motion for this, or just general consensus?
It's in the budget.
Pardon?
It's in the budget.
I would think just a general consensus.
General consensus in favor of it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We have listing several transfers on it. The first one I have on top is the Circuit Court, transferring from pauper transcript, law books, and postage to Chin's pauper attorney, $1,000, pauper attorney, $1,000, pauper attorney, $500, and pauper attorney, $100. Entertain a motion to approve these?
I so move we approve them. This is kind of an annual affair.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor of the transfer signify by your right hand. Opposed, the same. The next transfer resolutions from the commissioners on it. We're transferring supplies, computer supplies, telephone, examination of records, SBA, and workman's comp insurance. It's transferring $4,000 to retirement perf, $5,000 to retirement perf, $10,000 to retirement perf, $15,000 to retirement perf, and $64,000 to FICA and Medicare. Entertain a motion to approve these transfers.
George, on the, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll wait for discussion.
Do we have a motion for the transfers?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
Yeah, George, on the 64,000 going into the FICA and Medicare, what is our deficit there? How much, and why are we running that kind of a
I think we're going to
deficit?
have to look at that. That's something we've got to study, because I'm not sure why we're in a deficit on that. And I'm just being honest on that we need to really look at that and make sure that we're okay for next year.
What is our deficit right now? Is the 64,000 going to cover it all? Are we putting more in there than what we think we need, or where is it at?
I'd have to defer to Jana on that.
As of today, it's negative 12,000.
And what
this
have,
year yet.
and what have we paid into it this year already?
The expenditure out of there is $362,611.26. Budgeted $350,000.
So 64,000 should cover it.
Yeah, I'll cover it. Yeah. Any additional discussion?
What do we have budgeted for that for next year?
That was one of the things that we did do more of.
One of the issues here is that we paid the last payment in this year for last year. And so that has affected our budget for this year.
Next year, we upped it $100,000 to $450,000 to make sure that was covered. So, especially because with FICA and Medicare and PERF, whenever someone gets a raise or we change their salary, it's a percentage of that person's salary. So we're going to pay more whenever we raise someone's wages.
Yeah.
And that's what makes, I think that's why.
So having 27 pay periods next year will have no reflection on that. Because it's based on just the dollar amount. It's not based on the number of times you do a payroll.
Right. So, but the increase that you gave everybody, that will make it go up, and that's why we upped it to $500,000. So.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by your right hand. Opposed, the same. Our next transfer resolution is from redevelopment, contracted services to tax revenue bond, $132,000.
It's a bond payment with the redevelopment commission.
Do we have a motion for approval?
Also moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
We have a motion and a second, open for discussion.
That's it. When did we issue that bond? You remember?
3 years ago?
Yeah, several years ago.
What's that bond on?
There's two different bonds. There's a Series A and a Series B bonds. There's taxable and non-taxable. One is for land. They were going to do some site work out at Rail Connect. And the other one, trying to think, that was for the work at County Road 600. And it was actually, the bond was for 1.5, I think, on that one, and we only spent 700,000. We really did a good job on paring the cost down on that, but we had the bond. So that bond has to be paid next year, I think, or we have to use the monies. All that money's not been used is the issue. So we may have to just transfer that money back into paying the bond off.
This won't pay it off?
No, that's just a payment.
That's just a net payment.
Yeah.
And we had a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion? Those in favor of the transfer resolution signify by your right hand. Those the same.
George, how many years we have left on the payment of this building?
It's about 6 years.
6?
Our next transfer resolution is cum cap development. We're transferring from computer software and computer supplies to building maintenance, $30,000, sheriff's vehicles, $5,000. We have a motion for approval of the transfer resolution.
I'm sorry, John, what department is this?
It's, the fund is cum cap development. And we're transferring computer software, $30,000, to building maintenance, $30,000, computer supplies, $5,000, to sheriff's vehicles, $5,000.
What's the sheriff's vehicles?
And along with that, my question would be for the first one, what building maintenance? Sorry.
Which building on building
Where'd
maintenance?
this come from? Which department?
It doesn't have a
Doesn't
department.
have a department on it.
It's kind of the council and the commissioners that kind of control the Q cap, so.
Who wants it?
Who requested this?
I did because it's negative. I did.
Is the building maintenance part of the courthouse work that's being done now?
We just transferred to the garage for the sheriff.
And we knew we were gonna have to do an additional for that. The funding, the money is there. We just needed the additional for the additional work that you guys have approved for Mark to do for the courthouse and all the other projects that he's asked for. And then for sheriff vehicles, they bought You bought 4 vehicles, right? Was it 4?
No. We bought 3 and commissary bought 1.
Gina, are you sure it didn't have something to do with the total vehicle?
Yes, thank
Council
you.
approved the $4,800
Yes.
difference to replace just the car.
Yes.
The sheriff's department, we kind of split it between the equipment that was broken and ruined. That's right. And we paid for that, the council voted to pay for the difference between the insurance amount and the replacement car that we purchased.
And Jan and I talked about that, we never.
This has been on for 3 months, so this is back in probably March when you guys did that.
Yeah, it was voted to approve it, but never said where it was funded.
And this is like negative 42.91.
Yeah.
Right around
Listen,
the amount.
with the insurance check, with the damage of equipment
Yeah.
from the New Year's Eve crash last year,
Yeah, I
and
remember.
the equipment damage and totaled out, and the vehicle value they gave us was like $4,000 some odd dollars to just buy the vehicle. When we emptied out all the equipment and paid for everything else, then the sheriff agreed to pay for all the equipment, the reinstall, the dismantle fees. The council agreed to pay just the difference to purchase the repair car.
Yeah.
So this is probably back March, April when you guys did that. That helps.
Thank you, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
April, yes, because then we bought the 3 in August.
That claim took forever.
So whose account is the computer supplies that $5,000 is coming from? Is that a commissioner's account?
It's cum cap.
Okay.
So we have a line item for computer supplies in cum cap? So who spends that line item?
You guys, if someone comes to you and needs something for computers, do you approve it to be paid out of there? Commissioners, bigger the commissioners, and
So it's your,
say we need
kinda like
like a
your
new
line
server
item.
or something for the entire county, it could be taken out of here.
Same thing with the computer software then that you're taking the 30 out of? Okay.
I move we allow this transfer.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Have any additional discussion? Those in favor of the motion for a transfer resolution signify by your right hand. Opposed, the same. George, Commissioner's report appears to be next.
Yes, okay. Got a couple of things here. Matt Shipman, who's our county attorney now, brought forward to us that he's working with the EDC. There's been a couple of issues that, with CEDAP monies that we've used for companies to do expansions or acquisitions. And one of them was in Welligent, and it was an $80,000 CEDAP expenditure. They didn't perform the way that they were supposed to perform with it. They ended up going to Indianapolis, and so we got clawbacks in our contracts for that. So what we're doing is we're having Matt go ahead. We've approved him to pursue getting that $80,000 back for CEDAP program. So we're working on that. Any questions on that at all? We've got two companies that we're working with on that, Solstice and in Welligent, that have not performed, and we are going to pursue it. The Intelligent was 80,000, that was the biggest one, and so, and they still are an entity in Indianapolis. So So it's worthwhile to track them down.
Sure.
We also approved $80,000 for internet service for Indiana Fiber Network. And that's to bring internet service into, again, the TIF area, and that will hopefully lead into other areas of the county. They're working with other people on wireless, which will help even, we get into the Etna Troy area with the wireless, and you don't have to worry about, the lines, which we're hoping that works out really well for us. It'll take a couple of years, but IFN is if we approve this, they're willing to go into Park 30 within the next 2 months, 60 days. Previously, we had approved the $150,000. I don't know if you remember the $150,000 we approved, and that was for MetroNet. We did some vetting with MetroNet. It really, it wasn't a good situation for the county, so we pulled out of that and pursued Indiana Fiber Network. And looks like a lot better deal, half the money, and looking for is $80,000. It's $160,000 that they want, $80,000 from redevelopment and $80,000 from seeded. So if I could get your approval on that also.
I move we approve it.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. We have any additional discussion?
So they want to take 80,000 out of CDIT for infrastructure
Yes.
to pay for the lines?
Yeah.
And we're holding them accountable to pay for the lines with that 80,000? They can't
Yes.
use it for anything else or in another project somewhere else, or?
We'll make sure that they use that. They've already, a lot of this infrastructure that they've got is already put in place. They're the ones that have worked with Parkview to run the lines to Parkview. So the reason that it's a lot cheaper is because they've got the lines in place already, and we've actually done a study with the companies that are out at Park 30 and Rail Connect, SDI. They've looked at the pricing on this, and it's a better pricing than what they're getting, and it's a redundancy, and that's what they need. If you look at Gator Case, they use a lot of data, and they need good download speeds and upload speeds, and this will help them up to a gig service. So that's what we're looking for, getting back to the gig service.
And this is going right into the TIF district first? That's their?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion? Those in favor, signify by your right hand. Those the same.
Thank you. City came to us, and again, we've been going back and forth with the city. I know they've been to the council also about providing reduced fees for the county through seeded funds. We looked at the seeded funds that we've got, and they're asking for a $50,000 donation for the pool. And what that would provide us is the county right now, the way the structure is set up, the county's going to have to pay $300 per person, and the city residents would pay $200. If we do this $10,000 a year for the 5 years, then the county residents would only have to pay the $200. This was a little bit of a struggle for us on this, but knowing that it's going to be a benefit for the county residents, and a lot of the county residents, we're told, will use that as many as what the city, and we approved that. We're asking for approval from the council on that also, knowing that seeded funds are reevaluated every year.
There's no guarantee that you approve it for 5 years, that you can do it for 5 years.
Right, but we're trying to make that commitment to the city on that, I do believe it's a good benefit to the county residents. It'd be nice if it was a 12-month process, but it is what it is.
I do too, but it still feels like they're wanting us to help pay for their maintenance, not pay for the pool. Which fortunately SDI stepped up and did do.
Yeah.
We have a request, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the $50,000 contribution to the city out of our seeded funds as George recommended, with $10,000 coming each year for them to come back to us each year for that $10,000. With the understanding that that is not a promise and it can be reevaluated. And also with the understanding with the city that that would provide for all county residents the same price as far as a membership as it would for any city resident.
But it has to come back, because I want to make that seated plan annually.
Right, right. And Tad, do you have anything to add to that? This is
Yeah,
Tad Barga.
Well, you had said that there was $300 per person. It's actually $300 for a family of 4.
I'm sorry.
And it's, right now, it's the fee structure instead of $200 for city residents. So therefore, with the investment from the county, it would be, the fee would be level with both the city and county.
The end of 5 years, it'll go back up.
No, this is, no. As long as we get it for 5 years.
After the 5
No,
years.
after 5, I mean, it'd be the same forever at that point, provided that we get it for 5 years.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We're a second, okay. Any additional discussion?
I still feel that the vast majority of the taxpayers are not going to use that, and I think those that use it ought to be paying for it, and not the taxpayers.
Can I interject here?
Go right ahead.
So Jim, just to let you know, the vast majority of the people who utilize the YMCA pool of the kids that I coach right now are all county residents, not city residents. You know, so I'd say probably at least 70% of the people who participate in the programs that I'm involved with, which is 12 months out of the year, you know, commitment for me, are county residents, not in the city.
Well, my percentages I'm talking about, when I say most taxpayers, I'm talking about, I don't know how many kids swim. I'm sure
About
that
80.
out of how many thousands of kids in the county, very small percentage. And I think that same thing would equate to the people using the aquatic center from all around the county. It'll be a very small percentage of outside of Columbia City that'll be using that. And I just don't know that that's a good thing for all the taxpayers to be paying for that. I think it ought to be those that use it pay for it.
So there's actually a fee structure in place that would be using it, which would be $200 for a family of 4 and $300 for county residents. So they actually are paying for it.
I think the reason that we approved this, Jim, was because we're looking at it out of CEDAP funds, which is economic development funds. And out of those funding, we're looking at quality of life to help bring people into the area. I think that's how we looked at it more than, and it was an issue for us too, Jim. It's a struggle because it is taxpayer money, whether it be CEDAP funds or not. But we were looking at it as more of a quality of life issue for our residents, and willing to take a chance at this point for that.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion?
Yeah, we had talked once before about the city coming back on an annual basis and reporting how many county residents are actually using it, and then evaluating whether or not we're going to continue to contribute based on the number of people using it. Is that still being discussed at all?
We did discuss that. I mean, so what would be your mark that you would want to get to?
Well, I don't know. I'd just be interested in the data. I just want to know how many people, are using it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have an idea as people register and pay the fees, we'll be able to report that back to you. But, yeah, I don't think that would be an issue. We'll have all that information that we can, give back to the county council, and like George was saying, this is definitely a quality of life issue. One of the things we discussed yesterday is, companies in this area are trying to hire and bring high quality employees to this region, and people that have kids and family, that if you go to the Fort Wayne market, there's lots of bells and whistles for people to go and use there. There's lots of bells and whistles for families to go use in Kosciuszko County. In Whitley County, we're missing the boat. There's people who would rather move to those areas than to this area because there's more things for them to do with their families. This is just one thing to help
entice people to come here, stay here, and move their families here, and help grow businesses in the community as a whole, which will increase the number of people who live here, which will increase the tax revenue that is here.
I will say I will probably vote against this because most of my constituents are from the city and the taxes they pay compared to what the county pays, just to represent them because they're going to be charged the same amount. I will probably vote no, only for that reason.
Have any additional discussion?
I would add that I think that this project too is a far more broader project for the community than what the pool was when it was built in 1960. It was a swimming pool. This is almost like a mini water park. I think it's going to attract people to it, just if nothing else out of curiosity, and then I think they're going to be able to see the other benefits and the other events that this can host and the potential that it has, along with the pavilion and different parts of this. I think it's going to be very beneficial to our community as a whole, our county as a whole.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by your right hand. Those opposed, the same.
Thank you.
Anything else, George?
That's it.
We have the minutes that we have not approved yet.
I read through the minutes and I make a motion to approve them as written.
I second. We have a motion and a second.
So,
Any discussion?
in other business, on page 2, the last line, Councilmember Banks made a motion to approve the 4T schedule, seconded by Banks. So I recall making a motion, but I didn't do both.
You don't want to take credit for it?
Well, I can if someone else can step up.
With the changes made, do we have approval of the minutes? Those in favor signify by your right hand. Opposed, the same. Anybody from the general audience have any, Mark?
I think we need to come to some kind of resolution. We got 33,000 people in the county that depend on somebody to do some duties moving forward today. I would like to ask, for those that didn't vote for it, to explain why, clear back when these two females received their increase in May or June, they were the first two county employees to have a raise taken away from them. The Personnel Committee was in place at that time. Not one 911 duty has been taken away from what Scott Jones was doing, that Janelle is doing. And he was a male, and he made $58,000. Brandon Forrester has taken over 2 jobs. He got 66% of the raise of the other job his initial year. Last year, beyond other county employees, he received an additional $9,771 above the $1,800 to $1,900 that all the other county employees received. So I would like to see why these two women have been discriminated against for the same system that has paid everybody what was requested. There was one more, she's not an active employee. But my major concern is, you guys just gave $10,000 for a swimming pool for the citizens to use. Some didn't vote for it, I get it. But you guys won't vote $10,000 for the safety of the citizens of Whitley County to have their addresses right. Who is supposed to do this job moving forward today? Because I'm not capable of it. I haven't been taught it, I haven't learned it. So what is the resolution that these county residents are supposed to have a peace of mind and ensure that they're safe?
Sheriff, have you considered asking, putting it out to other people? In the past, we've offered 3%, there's been discussion, maybe even up to 5%.
That's
So-
just a slap in the face. You
so
pay the mail
perhaps-
$58,000.
This isn't about gender. Don't make it about gender.
It is.
It
It's
has
just
nothing
like
to do with
blacks
gender.
pulling the race card, you're pulling the gender card.
That's a ridiculous argument.
It is, totally.
And how did you guys justify Brandon at over 70% of the job?
I wasn't here at that time. I don't know how that was justified.
And here's my, here it is, Chip. Here's why I have a problem with that, okay? The Personnel Committee was in effect when that was taken, and it was passed. And we can bring the old video up. I did break those 2 jobs down 3 different times, and then in the meeting that didn't get recorded, Thor said I brought false numbers. I didn't bring false numbers. I was honest and said I construed it a 74 into a 79.
I said less than accurate, I didn't say false.
Okay, well, Janelle's numbers were never wrong. Her raise should have never been taken away. I just want you to explain to me and the general public why these 2 employees are the first 2 employees in Whitley County that have a raise taken away.
Again, I would tell you exactly like what has been brought up. This does not have to do with the 2 people that you've mentioned. This has to do with the positions. And I would offer to you an explanation, maybe that the Personnel Committee changed, maybe that you have different, you have a different council than when that position, or all those other positions were approved or not approved. You have a different face, things evolve, people get elected, the board changes, the council, excuse me, the council changed, okay? I think that with different people in there, the system itself has been looked at, and the system that they were evaluated under has been manipulated, not necessarily just by this, in this position, or in this instant, but it has been manipulated as a whole. It was in place for too long. The matrix to judge people's salaries and to give people raises for certain additional responsibilities and duties was being used to write job descriptions. The matrix had been in place and disseminated to anybody and everybody. It wasn't just something that was contained to the Personnel Committee to use for a fair evaluation of positions. That is exactly why that was, that evaluation process was rescinded. That's exactly why a new evaluation system has been put into place, and we're moving forward with that, because that system that was in place for too long, and it's outlived its usefulness. And maybe it took the fact that
I don't argue with you on that one, Thor, it may have, but my question is, it was in place, and that's what we were using under the county.
Right, and it still comes to this body as a recommendation and not as the Personnel Committee decided that this was what it should be, so here you guys are, approve it. This is still the governing body that is accountable for the tax dollars to the people who elected us into these positions.
I just asked, why are they the only 2 employees? Why that was still in place?
I think it's a matter of timing. I think it's a matter of when they came forward. I think it's a matter of a lot of things that are all an accumulation of coming to a head at a certain point in time. I don't think that there's anything else to point it to other than the change of the face of the council and change of the face of maybe Personnel Committee, and it's not a conspiracy. It's just it's a change of the face of the people that are on the council.
I think the guy that you had here for the presentation way oversold it, for one thing, but I'd be more than glad to give $5,000 or something and see how it works out, how well this all works out. And if that takes an increase in pay down the road.
We have to move forward.
I know we do.
To know that some of these citizens need to be safe. And right now, it feels like you guys don't care if we don't change those addresses.
No, that's not the case.
Mark, here's my problem with it. I sat on the Personnel Committee, when I've told you many times, we've talked about that. But here's the hang-up I have with it. We had a director in place, and all of a sudden, somebody says, well, we need to eliminate that position, because it's way too much money.
No, that's not what happened.
That's not why they eliminated it.
It was a personnel issue.
It was a personnel issue. The job,
Well, that's not what it was told, that was not what was told to me at the first of the year when I asked about it. When I asked who made that decision and why that position was eliminated, I was told that the council last year, it was brought in front of them whether that position was still needed or not needed. And the council at that time said that they kept it, or I was told that it was kept in the budget for this current year with the understanding that we may eliminate it at some point.
What happened, and that's completely true, that happened, but in the meantime, there was a personnel issue that came up. That job was vacated at that point. At that point, we decided that there was a good chance to save money on that. We were paying almost $70,000 a year. Those duties could be separated between two people. We could spend $10,000 to $15,000 instead of the $70,000 and do the same job, make sure that that job is done, because we had to have an administrator, okay? We don't have to have a director. Mr. Ritter's right, we don't have to have a director, but the commissioners are commissioned to make sure that there's an administrator for the 911 system. If there is not an administrator for the 911 system, by the end of the year, we could lose that $400,000 that we get from 911 fees. That's the problem that we have with that.
Because it's a public meeting and it was a personnel issue.
We have to be very careful on any personnel, but it was really it was a combination. Thor was right, it did come out that way, but in the meantime, there was a personnel issue, and that's why it was done as it was. And so from that point, we had an opportunity to take a look at that job and say, okay, maybe we can save some money. And that's what commissioners and the sheriff, we got together and we looked at it, and it was a possibility that Jody could take on part of the job and Janelle, and no, we're not talking Jody and Janelle. I'm talking about those two positions could handle.
We were gonna get rid of $58,000 and divide it for two jobs for $17,000.
Well, it's about 70 Martin couldn't perf and everything.
Yeah, by the time, and vacations and.
Well, I was just going straight
But
off the top.
that's where the commissioners came from on this, and I understand the way it looked, but it wasn't that way. It really wasn't.
Mark, when I come over and sat down and had a meeting with you, you told me that it was a surprise when the commissioners come over and remove Scott from his position.
Not removed, it was a surprise of where we were going and what had happened, and I'm not gonna talk any further on that in here. But those two jobs need done so bad at my department, there's nothing more I can say other than, I'm going on 23 years next year in June, I'll be here, and it feels like the sheriff's department is the most unwanted division in the county. It's felt that way since I've worked here.
I'm sorry you feel that way, because that's not the way I feel.
I just really thought we were saving the county and doing a good thing when I talked with the commissioners of taking 58, just going with the pay, good Tom, and dividing the two pays for $17,000. And I probably undervalued those two jobs, but I thought it would move us forward.
Well, I base part from where I'm at, because when I worked over there, and I know that Scott was a dispatcher, and he was able to do that. And a lot of times they'd call me, at middle of the night or something, and have a problem. But so many times we had an outside person who just needed to make a phone call to have somebody come in. And so I didn't think it really. I understand it's been quite a period of time now, and I really don't know. I'm not up to date quite with how it is today. But we have less landlines to change numbers, but then we have population increases, and you have to keep that all up, and
But there's not one duty that the old job was doing the way it was written, that she wouldn't be doing. And we're getting it at a value of $10,017.
Well, I think that's where the rub is the fact that you look at it as the 10,000, and we look at it as the fact that we understand that there should be additional money there for additional responsibilities. We're not seeing a $10,000 value on it. We've offered 3%. I don't even, quite honestly, I don't know what the number is on what 3% would be for that.
17 something, if I remember right.
For that increase for those positions, but that's nobody's arguing the merit of the responsibility of the job. It's everybody trying to come to a common ground on what is it worth. What is it worth?
Well, if we open it back up, we're paying $40,000 for that job to a new employee to come in and do it.
Well, and that's where we're at. I mean,
I
We
think
need to-
that's where we're at too.
We need to come to what it's worth.
What I ask that you look at is the process that we went through on that, because when that job, when the responsibilities were determined that it could be split up, there was nothing said about pay. There was even nothing said about additional pay at that point. It was just that those duties were going to be getting split up and that it would go to personnel because of the fact that there are additional duties for each job. When it went to personnel, personnel is the one that actually qualified those jobs for the raises. It wasn't the commissioners, it wasn't the sheriff's department, it was the process at that point.
Yeah, but George, I'm gonna tell you, that personnel committee was wrong from the get-go as far as we shouldn't even have graded it. I mean, you bring something, you lay it in front of the personnel committee, and we're supposed to go ahead and grade it, knowing that it's gonna come in front of the council anyway. We knew then, we knew when we was grading them, and we knew when we was grading the HR director to be, that this wasn't right. But yet, we went forward with it. And it was brought to us back here at council, and I know that 3 or 4 of us sat on there. We knew it wasn't right then.
I don't know that we knew that it wasn't right. Again, it was part of the process that we had in place, and we knew the process was, it could be manipulated.
And along with that, at the same time, you all were in the 11th hour, and now we've implemented a new system. Let's let the new system grade it out.
Except we gotta have somebody willing to do the work.
Well, and that's,
And
and
for,
we've
the
encouraged,
sheriff, we've got the sheriff as an interim, and it, he's trying, but the job is not getting done properly right now. We as commissioners have to make sure that that job gets done properly, and if we can't get it done, it's on us.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
Well, how
not
much of a
on-
liability we got out there if we do, something happens because we haven't done it
And that's
properly?
something you've got to look at too. That job is not, it's not something that they have, it's an administrator's job that if there was an emergency issue, they have to be able to handle that. Right now, we don't have anybody to handle that. And it's not something that, okay, well, they're not doing the job every day, but they've got to be prepared that if there is an emergency, what do we do? And who do we contact, and how do we go from there? It's not, we're talking at public safety here, we're not talking, HR director, it's completely different, it really is.
Go ahead.
We got some liability, if there's mistakes made, they come back to bite us.
And also, we're looking at that $400,000 we may lose, and I know it's kind of in the background, but, the state, I've talked to the state's told us that they're not concerned right now, but if at the end of the year, if we don't have administrators put in place, they're going to start looking at that.
Glenn, you had mentioned, can we move forward today with a motion of the 5,000 and have that reevaluated when the new system comes in? So I know these duties are getting done.
I'd be in favor of that.
Move forward
I would be
today.
in favor of that, yes.
Are you sure? And we got to accept the 5,000?
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is
She just
she's,
wants to do her job and move forward. That's a fair offer, Glenn, to move forward and see what they evaluate of that.
yeah, I'd be in favor of that.
In favor of moving forward today?
Well,
It's
not
tough
our
for us.
decision.
I know it's
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
but I'm reaching out and asking. so.
The consensus, I would say, between two of us would be, that would be
Let's
fine.
move forward for public safety today.
But it's on you to, whether you're going to
I
accept
just
it.
talked to her. She
Can you have in mind
do her job.
running that through the new system, and then see what that comes up with?
I'd like to make a motion then that we offer $5,000 and then wait for the new system to evaluate it.
Yeah, but we don't really have any confirmation that there's a new system in place yet.
No,
That's about $2.50 an hour.
Are you guys going to guarantee us that you got to approve the money for a new system? We don't know that.
we've already done that, Tom. We've already paid that bill. We've already made that approval. It was done at last month's
You
meeting.
heard the presentation. Are Are you going forward with this consultant?
We approved it last month. George has already spent that money. Right?
Well, we haven't done it yet. It'll be the first of the year that that money will be,
But we approved it at the last meeting.
yeah. I don't know if it was last meeting, but it was approved.
It was last meeting, it was, yes, the money was set aside to come up with a new structure on that. But I guess, is there gonna be any downplay or lag in getting this system implemented, so then that way it can be reevaluated and move forward? I do believe that Ms. LaRue actually stated that those jobs would be one of the first ones looked at when that new was in place also.
That was stipulated.
Yes.
Well, again, there's going to be,
The money's approved,
But we,
but
But nobody's
firm
been
has
hired.
not been approved.
but we absolutely have to move forward sometime this year.
That's right, but the money's approved, but not the firm. Are you gonna approve a company to do this?
I guess I need to know what other approval that you need from us rather than our job is to pay the bill, and you asked us for that money and we approved it. So what other approval do you need from this body?
My understanding is what we will need to do with Glenn's motion is to alter or change the salary ordinance that is in place for the $5,000 additional wages for that position, correct?
Correct.
On it. And we have a motion, but we have not had a second yet.
Can you repeat your motion?
Pardon?
What's the full motion? Can you repeat?
I make a motion that we give her an extra $5,000 to do this job, and that it be evaluated then by our new process to go forward from there. So we can keep things going.
And by doing that, in your motion, we're changing the salary ordinance to the compensation.
Correct.
It's $5,000 annually.
Increase.
Yeah.
Good.
Effective when?
Effective. Effective,
Sunday was a new pay period.
It started March
yeah,
12th.
effective the news pay period. That's fine with me.
March 12th.
We have a motion, does everybody understand it? Do we have a second?
Mr. President?
Yes.
The question, I believe the motion would also need to indicate that this will fill the administrator responsibilities to the state. And if it does not, it's probably not going to meet our ultimate need.
Yeah, we would need to reclassify her as administrator.
Well, and that's a valid point, because before we approved a 3% increase, only to have it thrown back at us and saying that it's an insult and that I won't do the job responsibilities for that. So I guess before we go to all that trouble, Janelle, if this is approved, are you going to do the responsibilities that are required by the state for us to continue to get the money from the state in the tune of $450,000 that's used to pay for 6 or 7 of our dispatchers? Are you willing to accept the responsibilities and do the job for that pay until at some point it's reevaluated either in your favor or against your favor?
Yes.
And when you continue to do those responsibilities after the fact, if it's brought to us and we don't increase it past the $5,000?
Yes. I just want to do my job.
And we want you to do your job, and you're doing a good job. But we are still the ones that are responsible to the taxpayers, and we still have to justify it. I know you all say, well, it comes out of 911 funds, but yet those 911 funds can be used for dispatcher raises, which would, take some pressure away from county general at some point too, so that there's other things that those funds can be used for. It's not just like it's just free money. And we are responsible to the taxpayers for that money. And we're put in a position where we have to make those tough decisions. And sometimes they're not popular decisions. I get that. And I don't like having the turmoil any more than anybody else. I feel pressure now in my normal everyday job from some people at the sheriff's department because they don't like some of the decisions and rhetoric that I have up here in this position. That affects me personally outside of this job. I have people that don't talk to me anymore. I don't like being in that position. That hurts. This isn't about right and wrong. It's about us needing to come together and getting something in place that everybody can live with, because we need to move on.
It's not about personalities or gender or anything.
It's about us being responsible to the taxpayers for the money and for getting the job done. We have an obligation to run that thing properly.
So we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, somebody wants to talk.
Real quick, been here almost 20 years. A lot of people in here, a lot of years of service in. Whatever happened about, sacrificing yourself? I mean, these people have given, sacrificed themselves for a lot of years for this county when they didn't need to. They didn't go looking for jobs. They enjoyed their employment. They went through it. Whatever happened to, giving to that employee, showing that dedication that they've served and showing it back? It's like it's leaving again. There's you're not giving anything to that employee back for showing 20 years of dedication, 20 years of service, 20 years for caring. How do you put a price tag on caring for your job? You know what happens when you get the people that are here just for the money? That's what you get. There's no effort, there's no care. We need to invest in the people that invested in this county. And that's what bothers me the most about this job. It's not a number figure. When we have people who are putting 20 years in, they've invested in this. They make sacrifices and they care about their job and the community that they're doing that job in. That's what makes a difference to me.
I don't follow what you're saying.
We're making all these investments in things that we don't know things about. We gave $10,000 to a pool. I hope the pool goes well. I hope we make that investment. What I'm saying is we have 20-year employees. I guess I don't see the investment coming back and invested. You want them to do a job, invest in that person. Trust that person to do that job.
And Jason, I
That's what
appreciate,
I don't understand.
I appreciate your perspective, but we have to keep in mind about 200 employees too, and we need to be fair across the board to everyone.
Not just this room.
And
You have 200 employees that's affecting the attitude on it.
And what you don't understand is there's 200 employees too that have given, not 200 employees, but out of those 200 employees, there's people that have given me input on it, the fact that, from other departments, that are upset with the perspective they have of the sheriff's department. So everybody is not looking at it through the same lenses. We have to take all that into account. We have to listen to
I'm
everybody.
speaking of the general term of employees everywhere, of investing in back into our.
Well, how long does it take for Mike to come back with an evaluation?
Okay. So far, we have a motion on the floor about the change of the administrator's position, change of salary ordinance for effective 11/5 on it for $5,000 raise in the position. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, but
Do we have a second?
I want to add to that, that she becomes the administrator.
And she will be appointed by the commissioners at that
Yeah.
point
Okay.
as an administrator.
Yeah, I'll second it. Yeah.
So if she's refactored, she'll be refactored as that.
Yeah.
And the new system comes in. Now, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion?
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Bill, did you make, was that a second?
Who was the motion? Oh, Glenn was the motion. I'm sorry.
That was a motion, Bill was the second.
Where's the money coming from?
Was it?
Money's coming from below it?
She's below it currently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we talked before about, I thought it was coming out of 911 fund, so it's not.
It could be paid, I brought that up, it could be, but she was transferred out and put another dispatcher back into her to free up a little more money for something in the.
So we're taking advantage of that by, even with the additional responsibilities, that would still qualify to be paid out of Lowit.
Thanks, Bill. That's a good question. We have a motion.
We're going to be late.
We have a motion and second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by your right hand. Opposed, the same.
Jim, sorry for that.
I get tired of them black preachers in Fort Wayne, every time something happens, it's about race. And I don't go for that.
Members of council, stick around till we have the printout on the change on the salary ordinance so it can be signed. Chad, do you have anything additional?
No.
Thor?
Nope.
Bill? Or Jim? Glenn?
No.
Kim?
No.
Bill? Anything additional from the general audience?
I'll come right down there.
Meeting adjourned.
which will be their 11th.